It seems like there's a misunderstanding here. No matter how outstanding your work is, you are ultimately just a cog in the company's wheel, and I'm the one who keeps that wheel turning. In other words, if you can't follow my orders, you don't deserve to work here." In a relentless tone, he rattled off nonstop, and then the president, after gulping down the contents of his mug cup, barked, "You are fired. Pack your stuff and get out of here immediately." Taken aback by the president's sudden declaration, I had no chance to argue and had no choice but to leave the company. But who could have predicted that the president would later regret this firing and end up expressing a big apology? My name is Tom. After working for a long time at an advertising company I joined as a new graduate, I left and started my own company in the same industry a few years ago. In other words, I'm the president of the company. However, running a company is quite challenging, and it's been difficult to get it on track, especially lately. Due to rising prices and conflicts, the needs and values of customers have been changing. I've been getting work from a client who's looked out for me since my days as an employee, all out of good old friendship. It's helping me make ends meet for now, but who knows how long this will last. How can I consistently get stable work orders? I run a small company, but I have a few employees to take care of. I can't let them all end up on the street. Even though I'm anxious about the uncertain future, I'm living through these uneasy days. That was until one particular day. After finishing a meeting with a client, I was standing on the terminal, waiting for my bus. It was the evening rush hour, and there were a lot of people moving around in front of me. Then, suddenly, one of them caught my eye. Her long, brown hair fluttered in the wind, and she had a sharp nose and a slightly long face. She might have been reading a paperback, looking down, but I was sure it was her. Without realizing, I dashed to get to her. Hey, maybe because I hadn't run like that in a while, I was out of breath. I've really been slacking on exercise lately. Oh, is that you, Tom? Yes, it's been a long time, Manager Catherine. My former boss, Manager Catherine, closed her book with an unchanged smile. It's been a while. Who would have thought we'd meet here? Indeed, it was quite a surprise. I almost told her how happy I was to see her, but held back the words. Looking at her, I was startled. She seemed to have lost weight, especially around her cheeks, and appeared overall smaller. Manager, what is it? You seem a bit tired. She tried to smile, but her eyes weren't smiling. Is something wrong? Then, she sighed deeply, as if she had given up. Actually, I've recently quit my job. What? I was so surprised that I raised my voice. Apologizing to those around me, my mind was swirling with thoughts. Maybe. Catherine shook her head desperately, but I continued anyway. It's my fault, isn't it? I still can forget Catherine's expression at that time. The company I used to work for was famous in the industry, partly because the president, John, was emerging as a prominent and ambitious businessman. At first, I was proud to have joined such an amazing company right out of college. But gradually, I became troubled by the situation where I had no choice but to follow the forceful and unreasonable rules set by John. Hey, make sure you get this client, no matter what it takes. Yes, you look like you want to say something. As long as you are here, you know what'll happen if you cross me, right? Yes. When I denied it, John glared at me sharply. I had planned to speak up today, but when faced with his reptilian, sharp gaze, I froze and ended up saying nothing. Back then, my sales performance was excellent, standing out from the others. It seemed likely that I would be promoted smoothly, and I was confident about it. Little did I know that this confidence would backfire. That day was the day of the monthly regular meeting. I was irritated because my sales performance hadn't been growing as expected recently. The meeting started with John's usual long talk, frowning over the less than stellar current situation and pointing it out. Sometimes, he would mix in stories of his past exploits and bragging, picking someone to publicly lecture depending on his mood that day. I really hated this time. It was no different from bullying. I couldn't grasp the content of his loud speeches at all. So noisy. I realized I had said it out loud. Worst of all, John heard it clearly. What's that, Tom? Got a complaint? No, it's just. He glared at me fiercely, his eyes shining like a predator's. He then directed that gaze at Catherine. Hey, how can you not control even one of your subordinates? I'm sorry. She showed her apology, likely against her will. In this awkward atmosphere, the meeting began, but I couldn't focus on anyone's stories. The earlier exchange enveloped me like a black whirlpool. Maybe today's the day to speak my mind. After all, I have been the top performer here. I had the right to voice an opinion or two. Convinced, I waited for a break in the conversation and then spoke up. Excuse me, President, but don't you think your approach might be impractical in today's world? Thinking it's impractical is just an excuse. Listen, the motto in sales is to push and keep pushing. If you target the moment the other party flinches, you'll surely boost sales. That's how I made this company big. But in this era, isn't that approach more likely to backfire? Hey Tom, listen. Catherine approached me with concern, but I continued without paying attention. Compliance has become much stricter these days. Maybe we should try to meet them halfway. Hey, since when did you become so bossy? Huh? John stood up, slamming his hands on the table. His eyes were bloodshot with anger, boiling with rage. You seem to be under some misconception. No matter how good your work is, you're just a part of the company's machinery, and I am the one who drives that machinery. In other words, those who can't listen to me have no place here. He said this smoothly, then downed his cup of coffee and announced, "You are fired. Pack your stuff and get out of here." He then reclined in his chair, crossed his arms, and glared at me. The deep furrow in his brow made his handsome face seem even more ruthless. "Wait a minute, please." Catherine raised her voice. "What is it, Catherine? Do you have a complaint too? It's too much to just announce a firing like that. These arrogant types won't get it unless you do this." "But," John, smirking, interrupted her, "this happened because you didn't supervise properly. I'll need a report on this later." And with that, he started going through documents, signaling the meeting to continue, without looking at me again. That's how I left the company, without using any of my accrued leave. When I visited the company for the resignation procedures, I unexpectedly ran into John, who said something shocking. "About your resignation, I've told HR that it's for personal reasons." His attitude was as if it was obvious that I would accept this, and I was left speechless. "Tom." I turned around at Catherine's pained call. "Manager, thank you for everything." As I was about to shake hands, she said, "You shouldn't have had to leave," and bowed deeply. "I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you as your boss." "No, this is fine." I left the company without really looking at her face. It's all because I got carried away and spoke out against the president. I had been smoldering with regret since that day, but Catherine shook her head vigorously and said, "No, it's not your fault. It's all his fault." She said this disparagingly about John. Her face is filled of loathing. "Even after you left, he continued the same way, treating employees like toys, using and discarding them. I don't understand how someone like that can be a president." Catherine said this bitterly, twirling her hair around her finger. I thought I just had to endure, but I couldn't stand his methods anymore and decided to quit myself. "Manager, where are you working now?" "Tom, I'm not a manager anymore." "Oh, right. So, Catherine, where are you working now?" Her eyes shadowed over. "I'm currently enjoying being unemployed." "What? Why?" She sighed and continued in a resigned tone. "Job hunting isn't going well. It's all John's fault." "Did he do something?" "I don't have any proof, but for some reason I was rejected during the document screening, even if I finally made it to the interview. When I mentioned the name of my previous company, there was a feeling of awkwardness, and nothing happened after that. Maybe he was under pressure. Maybe he's trying to harass me or something." I never thought the exceptionally talented Catherine would be in such a situation. An idea arose in my head. I looked at her face. What? If it's okay with you, would you like to work at my company? It's quite unstable right now, so I can't offer much salary, and it's a step down from before." "Oh." He looked clearly confused. "If it's a problem, it can just be temporary until you find something else." "Oh, but I'm not forcing you. Is that okay?" Catherine looked at me quizzically, peering into my face. In front of her beauty, which could rival that of a magazine model, my heart raced. "Yes, if you are okay with it." Thus, Catherine started working at our company. Since her arrival, the previously somewhat subdued atmosphere in the office was filled with energy and elegance. In John's company, Despite being only 30, she had become a manager. Naturally, her skillful work quickly made her an object of admiration among the other employees. Before she came, most employees seemed to be working with a sense of resignation. But inspired by Catherine's unwavering dedication to her work, everyone gradually became more motivated, and in response, the company's sales began to slowly increase. She was nothing short of a savior for the company, and I couldn't be more grateful to her. "Boss, good work today." "Ah, thanks." Unusually, one of the employees initiated a conversation. Previously, I seemed to be thinking only about the company's sales, and I seemed to have an air of being unapproachable, so I never felt comfortable talking to employees like this. Recently, however, I started to hear more and more people talking to me during my breaks, and I was beginning to realize that the atmosphere within the company had improved considerably. This was a pleasant change, thanks to Catherine's arrival. At that moment, she was in front of me, intently looking at her computer screen. It seemed my thoughts about her were evident on my face. "You look happy. What are you thinking about?" "Well, it's nothing." Trying to hide my bashful smile, but the employee kept grinning. "I've been thinking, there's more than just a work relationship between you and Catherine, right? Something seems fishy." "What are you talking about?" "There's nothing like that." I denied it, but I'm sure my face was probably showing an embarrassingly big smile. "Well, I guess a beauty like her wouldn't be interested in the boss." His cheeky comment was too accurate to argue against. That's true. That self-deprecating laugh made me feel incredibly empty. I had been working hard and was finally starting to feel like a proper boss. Sales were on the rise. Everything was supposed to be going well, until he showed up. "Hey, bring out the person in charge of this pathetic company." Like any other Monday morning, I was leisurely checking my emails when suddenly, a thunderous shout caught my attention. I rushed to the reception area, wondering what was happening. "President." Long time no see, Tom." Surprisingly, John had shown up at the company without any prior notice. "Looks like things are going well here. Did you pull some strings?" His mocking tone was laced with a palpable sense of disgust. "No, it's all thanks to the hard work of our employees." Before I could say more, John got straight to the point. "I heard Catherine's working here now." "Yes, she is. The company's recent improvement is partly thanks to her hard work." Then John, raising his eyebrows in an exaggerated manner, said something outrageous. "Why did you hire her?" "Don't tell me you." "I hired her because when we met by chance, she mentioned she was struggling with job hunting. That's all." "Fire her." "What? Why?" Looking into John's bloodshot eyes was like facing a wild beast. I asked him the reason while hiding my trembling. "What do you mean?" "It's simple. I don't like that she's working somewhere else without my knowledge. I'm sorry, but she's an important asset to our company. I intend to keep her on board if she agrees." "What did you say?" "Please leave. No matter what you say, I won't comply." "Getting a little too big for your britches, huh?" "Well, fine. I have my own plans. Just you wait and regret this, man." Saying this, unable to contain his anger, he kicked a nearby trash can and stormed out of the office like the wind. But as John said, I began to regret my hasty words. Starting the next day, clients and business partners began contacting us, rethinking their contracts with us. Just when things were stabilizing, what was happening? I called one of our partners and asked for the reason. After some hesitation, he finally said with a trembling voice, "Actually, we've been told by a certain company we do business with that if we continue working with you, Tom, they'll end their dealings with us." "Is that company, by any chance?" "Yes, it's the one you used to work at." So, it was as I suspected. Holding the phone, I slumped. As expected, John had found out which companies we were dealing with and pressured them to stop doing business with us. I was at a loss. But firing Catherine was unthinkable. The faces of each employee come to mind. Some of them happily announced that they had recently given birth to a child. Then, a certain shadow suddenly stood in front of me. "Boss." Catherine. Her expression was determined, as if she had made up her mind. "This is all because of me." "Catherine, that's not. Please, let me resign." She cut me off and bowed her head. As I struggled to find words, I heard several footsteps and the door swung open. "What are you saying, Catherine?" You can't leave. Why would you need to leave, boss? Hearing this, the employees gathered around her. Encouraged by their support, I looked firmly at her and said, "They're right. There's no reason for you to leave. But this is undoubtedly my responsibility as the president." I clenched my fists as if making a decision. I won't run away this time. I'll fight head-on. I won't let anyone who tries to hurt our valuable employees get away with it. That's right. Let's show the true strength of our company. Where else should we give our best if not here? Inspired by my words, the employees raised their fists in the air. Catherine's eyes seemed slightly moist, witnessing this unity. Thus, all the employees united and visited each company that had refused to deal with us. We faced rejection time and again, and many, fearing John's influence, apologetically turned us away just at the mention of our company name. Nevertheless, everyone tirelessly tried to approach and steadily cultivated new business relationships. John's pressure was more damaging than imagined, at one point even threatening our company's survival. Yet, everyone continued without complaint, working diligently. Thanks to their efforts, sales gradually increased, and when we achieved record annual profits, we celebrated together, holding hands. I was confident we had won a significant victory against John. Then, one day, something happened. As soon as I arrived at the office, I noticed a commotion around the reception. Rushing over, I saw John. But instead of his usual arrogant demeanor, he seemed troubled. "What brings you here, President? Please, ask Catherine to come back to my company." "What are you talking about?" He approached me with an uncharacteristically humble attitude. "Please, I'm begging you. Since she left, things have been falling apart. I realize now that Catherine is indispensable to us. Please ask her to return." As I was about to refuse, Catherine appeared, poised and confident. Catherine, I've been waiting for you. I was wrong. Please come back to us." He begged desperately. "I'll double your salary, or name your price. Just come back, please." Despite all the despicable things John has done, he still holds power in this industry. The scale of the company and the value of the name John are enormous. It would be strange for a girl who is so talented that the president of such a company asked her to do something like this to continue working at such a small company forever. I waited for her reply. However, without changing her complexion, Catherine answered, "I refuse." "Huh?" Both John and I were taken aback by her unexpected response. "President, I appreciate your recognition, but it's not about the money." And she continued sternly, "How do you explain pressuring companies associated with ours?" "Pressure? No, I wouldn't do that. I've heard everything. Did you think we were unaware?" John, sensing the serious air around her, replied weakly, "Can you please stop interfering with us? I apologize for everything. But please leave." John looked at her with desperate eyes but eventually slumped and left. The office was tense for a while, but Catherine lightened the mood. "All right, back to work. Boss, don't you have a meeting soon? You'll be late. Let's get ready." Later, John's company, having lost all credibility, went bankrupt. He, stripped of wealth and honor, never recovered. Despite his efforts, his past misdeeds became widely known in the industry, and even banks refused to deal with him. At the same time that the company disappeared, John was nowhere to be seen. Rumor has it that he started working as a day laborer in order to pay off the debts left behind when the company folded, but his pride as a famous president got in the way and caused him constant trouble with his colleagues. The whereabouts of John, now constantly changing jobs, remained unknown. However, the employees of his bankrupt company were the true victims. Despite the bankruptcy, the company's long-standing reputation meant that it had many talented employees. Even after Catherine resigned, the employees who admired her stayed in touch, and some of them came to work at our company, thinking that if Catherine was there, it must be a good place. It was a fortunate time as the company was stable, and we were discussing expanding our workforce. Unlike before, when I was only worried about tomorrow's finances, I could now manage the company with some leeway, but my feelings were complicated. After all, it was because of Catherine that we had achieved so much. As a president, I kept questioning if this was okay, and whenever I saw employees happily going to her, I felt a twinge of jealousy. I hated this small-minded side of myself. Then, John's face came to mind. John's method was not one that I was praised for, but I was surprised that he too was in a hurry to ignore such an excellent junior. I think his unreasonable bravado about having to show off as the president and his intense jealousy towards his girlfriend became intertwined, resulting in him acting in such a coercive way. I began to understand how John might have felt. "Boss, I've left the report for you." "Thank you, Catherine. Please, call me just Kathy." "Well, it's just. You were my boss before, but now I'm your subordinate." "Right, but, do you have a moment? I wanted to ask you something." I managed to change the subject. "Yes, what is it?" "You remember when John came here and asked you to return to his company? Why did you refuse?" "Simply because I didn't want to. That's all. I mean, why did you stay here? You're talented enough to work at a much bigger place." Catherine sat down on the sofa and began to share her feelings. "When I was at the previous company, I was really dissatisfied with their methods and rules, but I couldn't say anything. I was afraid of what would happen if I did. But," she paused, looking at me, "you stood up to John with courage. Even though it led to you being forced out of the company, I saw it as something bright. You looked more impressive than anyone." That's it. I never knew she saw me like that. Ever since you left, I've been working frantically. However, I've been wondering more and more if this is okay for me. I quit my job in a hurry, but what should I do now? Just when I was thinking about it, the president called out to me, and I decided to follow this person for the rest of my life. "Oh, I see. You taught me the importance of living life without regrets." "Thank you, Tom. Thank you for believing in me and following me." It was a bit embarrassing to bow to each other again, but knowing Catherine's thoughts made me incredibly happy. Thanks to the daily efforts of Catherine and the other employees, the company's performance steadily improved. Eventually, we achieved one of our long-term goals, taking the company public. Yet, my gratitude towards the employees who stood by me during the hard times never waned. And then, another significant change occurred. "Today, I will finally get your answer." "Well, it's just that." Catherine, with her wide, bright eyes, leaned in. "It all started during one of our usual conversations. When will you start calling me by my nickname, Tom?" she had asked. "Call you by your nickname? That's too sudden." I had always managed to change the subject, but today I couldn't escape it. Scratching my head, trying to think of a way out, she suddenly sat on my desk. "I want to clarify something. What do you think of me? I won't move from here until I hear it." Saying this, she puffed her cheeks cutely. "Well, you're competent, intelligent, and wonderful at your job." But beyond that, I was deeply conscious of her. She was capable and beautiful, but never arrogant about it. Her kindness and hard work attracted me more and more. Her face constantly appeared in my mind, distracting me from work. But I, a hopeless boss, didn't think I was a match for her. So, I kept my feelings hidden, treating her solely as an employee. But her directness was shaking my resolve. She smiled softly, as if seeing through me. "Lies. There's more to it, isn't there? I've noticed." Her face was so happy. "Well, it's just that." I felt my face turning red. Seeing this, Catherine murmured contentedly, "Honesty suits you. When I started the company, I was desperate. I didn't want to hate myself for opposing John. When John's pressure nearly led to bankruptcy, I regretted standing up to him many times. Why am I the only one who faces this? How many sleepless nights have I spent thinking about this? Even so, there was someone who saw me even though I was so reckless. If I had given in and stayed with John's company, I would have ended up living a hollow life, searching for reasons why things didn't work out. In this world, where accommodation is common, the true winners of life are those who can cast aside such considerations and choose a path without regrets. Now that I've met Catherine and gained invaluable colleagues, I feel this more strongly than ever. I want to continue to push forward toward further goals without losing sight of what is important. Of course, important people too.